Tonight on 2020, Heroes Among Us. How far would you go to save a stranger in the darkness of a hospital that's lost its power and has newborn babies about to lose their lives if nurses don't get them out first?
In my mind, I was like, how are we going to do this?
Or in a tent nearly 7,000 miles away, a ticking time bomb lodged in a man's body.
Whether it took fingers off or not, we had to get this thing out.
Who will put their lives at risk to save him? What does it take to be a hero? Are they born or created on the spot?
5 more minutes and he would have been drowning.
And before theme parks, there was the Jersey Shore.
Here's excitement enough for anyone.
What will it take to bring it back? Is it lost forever? Tonight, ordinary people who face their fears to save someone they don't even know.
I love you guys.
Heroes Among Us. Here now, Elizabeth Vargas.
Good evening. As you've seen this week, and so many of us here in the Northeast have felt firsthand, it often takes the worst to bring out the very best in people. From going door to door to rescue the stranded to offering something as simple as a warm meal or a chance to recharge a cell phone. The heroes of Hurricane Sandy are definitely out in full force. So what actually makes a hero? Tonight, as this first phase of search and rescue winds down and the brand new fear moves to gas and fuel running out, take a look at some of the most memorable heroes on land and sea.
The perfect storm. The rain has really picked up.
The beach used to be about 150 yards that way.
We already have rescues ongoing.
As 60 million Americans braced for the storm of the century, the images were harrowing. A devastating water world of flooding, fire, and fear.
Hold on, hold on.
But in the midst of those heartbreaking losses were stories of heartwarming courage. Every rescue, a desperate rush to save lives.
The water went up to my neck, sometimes it went over my head.
We had to go out the second-story window. These guys helped us down from the second part of the roof.
Guys, you gotta back up.
Some of the most vulnerable, the 20 tiny babies housed in the 9th floor neonatal intensive care unit at NYU Langone Medical Center. They were among the hundreds of patients evacuated after the East River flooded the hospital and the backup generator lost power. For these 7 NYU nurses, it's a challenging job in the best of times. The babies range in size from just under 2 pounds to 4 pounds and require constant and careful care.
With patients like this, I mean, what does your job entail exactly? Are you monitoring constantly these babies and every single vital sign?
Absolutely. You can see the monitors at all times.
Late Monday afternoon, Hurricane Sandy is in full force. As winds and rain buffet the windows, it is time for a shift change. The day nurses begin briefing the night shift nurses.
Currently, the settings on the ventilator are such and such. The baby's feeding this, the medication is this.
Suddenly, the room plunges into blackness. Those machines keeping the babies alive all go silent. For one brief moment, everyone freezes. Then the alarms begin to ring as emergency batteries kick in.
Everyone went into action.
For the generators to fail in this hospital, for a moment, were you in shock that you were
in shock?
Yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Everybody ran to the patient to make sure that the babies were fine. If you had your phone with a flashlight on the phone, you held it right over the baby.
And everybody went to the ventilated patients first. That's your instinct.
One of the scariest moments for me was when I looked out the window and I saw that 34th Street was completely flooded, and at that point we hadn't started the evacuation yet. And in my mind, I was like, how are we going to do this?
4 of the babies were considered critical, needing help from machines to breathe. Without power, the nurses rely on battery-powered respirators to pump oxygen into the baby's lungs. The clock was ticking.
What was your best estimate collectively as to how much time you had before you were in real trouble with these tiny babies?
I would say 4 hours. The vent would have worked for 4 hours.
The rest of you, about the same?
Almost
2 or 3.
Annie Irachi was the nurse for the most critical baby.
And he had just had abdominal surgery the day before. And this is a 2-pound baby.
A 2-pound baby, just out of surgery.
Just out of surgery.
And still unable to breathe on his own.
On medications to keep up his blood pressure. And he also had a cardiac defect, so he was our first baby to go.
Each baby was surrounded by a team of medical staff, at least 5 per child. Security guards and secretaries joining the journey 9 flights down. Unable to generate their own heat, the babies are placed on warming pads and wrapped in blankets. Flashlights and cell phones light the way. They use handheld bags to pump air into the baby's tiny lungs.
We literally synchronized our steps going down the 9 flights. I would say step, 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 step.
Today they showed us how they carefully navigated the stairs with their fragile cargo.
They're so tiny. You have to, how did you know how much to squeeze when you're manually bagging? Because isn't there a danger you could rupture a lung by pumping too much air in?
Absolutely. You do have to be careful because your adrenaline is flowing.
Right. We're not usually bagging a baby down a stairwell.
In the dark.
Right. In the dark.
With calling out step, step, step. Was it scary to hold this tiny being, this tiny child, this treasured baby?
For myself, I was more worried about, okay, let me not trip on this staircase as I'm carrying somebody's precious child.
Right, exactly.
Because that would be unforgivable.
My particular patient, she had her eyes open. She was really in tune to something is going on here. Things are changing here. This is not my usual environment.
When they emerged, a line of ambulances was waiting. This video of Nurse Margot Condon cradling a tiny baby as she rode on a gurney struck a chord worldwide. But Condon had a singular focus.
I was making sure that the tube was in place, that the baby was pink.
But you were never taking your eyes off that baby.
I was not taking my eyes off that baby or that tube.
Like the other nurses, she did not feel panic. Her precious patient helped keep her calm.
I almost felt like the babies were giving me a little comfort.
Yeah.
Because
I felt that too.
Because they love to be held.
Yes.
So they, every time I would look down at the baby had his little hand on my chest.
Yes.
Like, this is good.
It was that iconic image of Margot and her tiny charge that symbolized the heroism of so many during Hurricane Sandy.
You know, during the darkness of the storm, I think we also saw what's brightest in America. Nurses at NYU Hospital carrying fragile newborns to safety.
Well, even President Obama talked about you ladies and the work you did after seeing that picture of you, Margot. What is that like?
Definitely gave me chills when I heard that over the radio. You know, to hear, you know, our home, you know, being mentioned like that was really touching.
But President Obama's shout-out can't hold a candle to the emotional gratitude from the parents of these babies.
Oh, my friend.
Baby Jackson was one of the last evacuated by nurse Sandy Keong Bradbury. He is now at Montefiore Hospital.
Yeah, I'm just so thankful. Sandy was right by my side through the whole time. They mean a lot to me.
And at Mount Sinai Hospital, Luz Martinez wrapped her arms around Nurse Beth Largy.
We were not going to let anything happen to her.
In whose arms her 2-pound baby Emma survived.
I'm never going to forget what you did for our daughter.
I just wish that, you know, I had something to give to every one of them, but all I can say is just thank you and thank you and thank you.
Next.
And this is really nuts. That's a road right there.
From 7 flights up, he saw a cab trapped in the swirling waters of Sandy. He ran all the way down to the rescue.
I just couldn't watch a man die in front of me.
What turns some people into heroes? Believe it or not, there's a science to predicting it when we come back.
So do you have the right stuff? It's a question that's being asked and answered through countless examples of heroism all this week. But there is another provocative question that goes along with it. Are you actually born a hero, or do you become one during those few seconds that can mean the difference between someone's life and death? As Jim Avila finds out, there's actually something of a science to it.
Man, this is really nuts. That's a road right there. I never witnessed anything like this ever.
New Yorker John Candelaria bearing witness and recording Hurricane Sandy Monday night.
You can hear it howling, just whistling.
Then he spots a taxi trapped in a whirlpool. He leaves the safety of his apartment, wades into icy floodwaters, and saves a total stranger.
When I got to him, the water was already up to his chin. 5 more minutes and he would have been drowning.
Neighbor Rita Callahan watched him do it.
He saved his life. Bottom line, he's a hero.
I was never a lifeguard at all. And this was my first time actually jumping into action and saving somebody. I didn't know I had it in me.
But it doesn't always take a hurricane. Some spring into action at the first sign of trouble. Just watch. The most dangerous part of a police officer's job, the traffic stop. Officer Jonathan Sider in the fight of his life. The suspect goes for his gun. Enter Angie Pierce. By day, a mild-mannered cashier. But on this night, a brave crime fighter. Batman without the cape.
I do truly appreciate what you did.
You're welcome.
And my wife does too.
Or this summer in New York, a 7-year-old autistic girl out on a ledge. She falls. Not to her death on the hard pavement, but into the soft and waiting arms of a savior below. Bus driver Stephen St. Bernard.
People here say you're a hero. Do you agree with that?
No, a hero's a sandwich.
Professor Rob Willer says research now shows heroes are people with a key, perhaps surprising character trait, high self-confidence.
They feel like if they take an action, that action will be successful. They're the kind of people that think that their behaviors will be effective.
And then there are those more comfortable in the role of bystander. Some don't even seem to notice the crises all around them. Take Brazilian model and actress Nana Gueva, getting more hurricane fame than she may have bargained for. Online media have been outraged, many wondering what was she thinking as she turns a stricken city into a backdrop for a photo shoot. Striking pose after glamorous pose among wrecked cars, fallen trees, and dangling cranes, posting it all on her Facebook page. Or this true life and death moment, a famous fiery motorcycle crash in Utah, September 2011. Brave strangers banding together in a superhuman feat of strength, lifting the burning BMW, dragging an unconscious motorcyclist to safety. But even if you've seen it 100 times, you may have never noticed this guy, that well-dressed man just standing there, at one point even leaning on the car. He is the driver of the car who police say caused the crash. Witnesses at the scene say he appeared to be in shock, but many YouTube commenters had another explanation in their outrage, calling him a coward, a selfish jerk, and speculating he didn't want to get his suit dirty.
There's a variety of reasons why people don't intervene in emergency situations. Sometimes they might not feel personal individual responsibility. They might feel that other people already are taking care of the problem, that they would only get in the way.
No one would have ever known if Billy Quitton had decided to remain a bystander when this Bronx apartment building caught fire in 2009. Quitton is in his store on the ground floor. He spots a little boy trapped 4 stories up. A firefighter inside rescues the boy, but needs help, handing the child out to Quitton, who carries him down the fire escape to safety. What's inside you that's different?
I cannot live with myself if I don't do something about it.
Quitton says his heroism comes from deep inside, a childhood trauma. His own father, back in Romania, trapped and died in a fire when neighbors refused to brave the flames and rescue him.
When I saw that happen, I will do everything in my power to be able to give somebody their life back. If I could help, if nobody's around, I will do it.
The story of what makes someone a hero is probably a complex one that's a product of many forces, personal, situational, and also developmental.
22-year-old Keena Williams is a force of nature. She proves it on San Francisco's Highway 101 in October 2011, when a chain reaction crash lights up the sky.
And then the truck flipped over, and then it skidded, and I stopped right exactly like around here.
Williams, who is driving in her pajamas at this early hour, tells her daughter to stay put in the back seat while she runs toward, not away from the flames, to rescue truck driver Mike Finnerty.
I ran to him, and I dragged him running backwards.
What do you remember going through your mind as you're pulling him away from the fire?
Please don't let the truck blow up.
That particular moment, that particular day, I was fortunate that she was there. I call her my guardian angel, and I still say it today. She's my guardian.
The Heroic Imagination Project in San Francisco says their research shows some surprises. City folks may be more likely to be heroes than their country cousins. Yes, they study this stuff.
African Americans were 8 times more likely to have done heroic deeds than Caucasians. Hispanic men, but not women, were twice as likely. So now we're trying to follow it up and say, how come?
For more research, the Heroic Imagination Project will have to look no farther than their own offices. They now have a hero on staff. They hired Keena Williams.
I don't look at myself as a hero. I just look as I'm a good person, and if I was in that situation, I would want someone to help me.
Back in New York, John Candelaria has a memento of his heroism, a single snapshot with the cab driver he plucked from the rushing water. He doesn't even know the name of the man he saved. They posed for one picture, then parted ways to continue their struggle through the storm.
I wasn't trying to be a hero, but I just want to be like I think that's what humans should be doing. Instead of posting pictures up on Facebook or Instagram and stuff like that, you know, we should care for each other.
Next, risking your life to save someone else. It was made up on Grey's Anatomy. A patient turned into a human bomb.
Pink mist. That's what the bomb squad calls you when you blow up. Pink mist.
Now it's happening for real.
The fact that they would put their own lives at risk to help somebody else.
What if helping another person could actually kill you? With Hurricane Sandy, people jumped into rescue mode without a second's thought about their own safety. But what if you knew all the risks but still did it anyway? That's exactly what happened 7,000 miles away when, in a freak accident, a young American man became a sort of human ticking time bomb. It's another look at what heroism is all about.
A sunny spring day in eastern Afghanistan. The soldiers of Alpha Company head out on patrol. Private Channing Moss is on board, manning a gun in a Humvee.
How prepared, how poised did you have to be?
Very poised. You're scared. You have to learn the terrain, you have to learn every bump, every rock.
This is Taliban and Al-Qaeda country.
There's danger zones all over the place.
Sergeant Eric Wynn is in Moss's Humvee. And in a stroke of luck that will soon become apparent, so is Jared Angel, the only medic on the patrol. The men call him Doc. Lieutenant Billy Mariani is in command. He remembers, for some reason, he had a bad feeling about that patrol.
There was definitely a sense of uneasiness, a sense of apprehension. You're waiting for something.
The convoy enters a narrow stream bed surrounded by higher ground.
I saw a puff of smoke.
And then you just hear a pop.
I was like, we're in contact.
Oh man, we're under attack. We just got ambushed.
Bullets turn to rocket-propelled grenades. Rockets the size of baseball bats with high explosives on one end and tail fins on the other, traveling as fast as a bullet. That is what is now raining down on Alpha Company.
And I saw the first rocket hit a truck in front of me, and you could hear it just barreling through the air. Then you heard the boom. I'm like, get out of the kill zone. Right when I said, get out, is when we got hit. I didn't even finish my sentence.
3 rocket-propelled grenades hit the Humvee.
It felt like one huge blow.
One punches through the windshield.
I thought I got slammed up against the truck. And I went to go return fire again. And then I smelled something smoking, and I looked down, and I was smoking.
You were smoking?
Yes, ma'am. I look at him to tell him to turn the gun toward where we're getting shot at. And that's when I noticed.
I see the fin sticking out of his side.
I looked down, and the RPG was sticking out of me. It was still smoking.
So you look down, you see the fins of an RPG sticking out of you?
Yes, ma'am.
The first transmission was from Sergeant Wynn, who was in Moss's truck. And he said,
I have 2 casualties. One's myself. I have shrapnel wounds to my face. And the other one's Moss. He has a tail fin sticking out of his side.
I could hear Moss raising hell in the background over the radio.
I was scared, so I was screaming.
Even a battle-hardened soldier would have been shaken at the sight of Moss, impaled with a 3-foot rocket designed to explode on impact, killing anyone within 30 feet. Doc Angel is less than a foot away and is the first person that day to make a decision that would save Moss's life. He stays there.
I looked at him straight in his eyes like, Doc, I don't want to die like this.
I'm gonna do everything I can. I said, you keep fighting with me, I'll keep fighting with you.
As Doc Angel bandaged Moss, Sergeant Wynn also remained within reach. If the rocket were to explode, all 3 men would die instantly.
He was holding my hand and on the radio at the same time. He was squeezing my hand, making sure I was staying alive.
A Black Hawk chopper is ready to go rescue Private Moss, but with bullets flying, the battlefield is still too dangerous. Commanders delay the flight.
I constantly was looking at my watch saying, you know, when's the bird gonna get here? When's the bird gonna get here?
I asked him, I was like, Doc, what do you think? And he just kind of shook his head.
Private Moss is close to death. He begins thinking of his wife Lorena, 6 months pregnant back home in Georgia, their daughter Juliana, and the baby on the way. Private Moss begins to pray.
That's when I started thinking about him. I mean, I'm not gonna see Lorena, I'm not gonna see my baby born, I'm not gonna see Juliana. And I was just like, God, take care of him, please.
Then Moss hears the sound of help from above. The rescue chopper has finally arrived. For the first time, the crew sees Moss and those rocket fins. They realize instantly saving his life will require risking their own.
In his abdomen, in this area right here, was the shaft of the rocket, and the fins were sticking out over here.
Army policy states they are not supposed to transport him. Moss was a human bomb. The risk was too great. He could blow the $15 million helicopter out of the sky and kill 7 other soldiers on board. But if they left him, he would most certainly die.
And I asked my crew, like, are you guys comfortable with this? Because I wasn't going to put my crew in jeopardy if they wasn't comfortable with this.
He's possibly bleeding to death internally. He's in shock. We had to get out of that situation and get to a hospital where they could do surgery on him.
Coming up, a human bomb that could blow up everyone in the operating room.
We saw fins coming out of his left side of his body and had a big bulge in the front of his right thigh.
I saw faces drop. Like, oh man, this guy has a rocket in it.
An Army rescue chopper is racing over mountaintops in Afghanistan. On board is Private Channing Moss, a rocket-propelled grenade inside of him. Now it is hard to know who he needs most, a doctor or the bomb squad. The best medical care is here, a rough frontline Army field hospital in a place called Organee, with 2 surgeons, Major Kevin Kirk and Major John O.
Everybody just all of a sudden jumps to action. We're preparing for multiple casualties. There was a flurry of activity inside the aid station.
Getting ready, but for what? The chopper crew was radioing ahead Moss's worsening vital signs, heart rate shooting up, blood pressure dropping. What they didn't tell the doctors was exactly what was causing all of the trauma. an explosive rocket through his body.
What did they tell you was going to arrive?
They said a shrapnel injury to the American casualty.
At what point did you see what you were dealing with?
Well, when we started cutting away the bandages, we saw
fins coming out of his left side of his body and had a big bulge in the front of his right thigh.
The 3-foot-long rocket runs through Moss's body from his left side all the way down to his right hip.
I saw people go. I saw faces drop. Like, oh man, this guy has a rocket in it.
Incredibly, both Dr. O and Dr. Kirk had drilled for this exact scenario.
there's a way to handle it. There's a protocol.
What is that?
You're actually not supposed to bring them in the aid station there, and actually he wasn't supposed to be flown with the other patients either.
He was supposed to be left.
He was supposed to be set aside, actually.
Set aside to remove the danger to others until the bomb could be defused. But more than likely set aside to die.
So you violated procedure that day.
Yes. But we felt it was one of those things that it's very different when you see an American soldier come in who's in jeopardy and has the same uniform as you do.
Yeah, I think the medical professional took over, and then, that's why we decided to do what we weren't supposed to do.
Now Private Moss has his next life-saving break. Sergeant Dan Brown is on the base. Brown is an explosives expert, usually called on to dispose of bombs and captured weapons. Brown is due to go home in just a few weeks.
Counting the hours?
We were counting hours, yes we were.
In his free time, Brown has been watching videos sent over by his wife. One of them is an episode of Grey's Anatomy about a patient with an unexploded bomb inside of him.
Pink mist. That's what the bomb squad calls you when you blow up. Pink mist. Bomb goes off and there's nothing left.
In the television show, the explosives expert is blown up. Sergeant Brown runs to the aid station to play a crucial role in this real drama.
I didn't use holy cow, but I used a few other choice words. I was like, he's still alive, and the doctor's like, yeah.
What did Sergeant Brown tell you about what you faced?
Well, the first thing I needed him to tell me was, is this an RPG? And so he comes in and says, yep, that's an RPG.
And before I said anything else, Dr. O said, we're staying. We are going to try to save his life. And I said, okay, we're on the same page then.
Was part of the reason that he was conscious that you could look into his eyes?
Absolutely, I think so. I mean, it would have been very different if I thought he didn't have a chance.
What did you explain to Dr. O the different scenarios were?
First off, right off the bat, I told him the worst case scenario.
He said we'd all be pink mist, so that's all he needed to say.
Everybody inside the room would be dead.
I knew Sergeant Brown because we used to play poker, and I knew he was a risk taker, so I knew he was the right guy for the job.
Dr. O orders everyone except critical staff out of the aid station. The 2 doctors and 3 surgical staff remain, and each knows the risk.
I looked everybody in the eye and said, you guys understand what's going on here, right? And I knew everybody heard me, but nobody said anything. They just kept doing their jobs, so.
At any other point, did you say anything?
And then I said that it was okay to leave, and sorry.
It's okay. Nobody did?
Nobody left, so I took that as a yes.
Why does that make you emotional thinking about that?
Just the fact that they would put their own lives at risk to help somebody else. That's the epitome of the medical profession.
You must have been very proud of your crew that day.
Yes, I was. I was.
The staff moves cautiously, forcing themselves to focus on the job at hand and not the explosive in the room. And then, Private Moss died.
His heart actually stopped. We had to consider doing CPR on him.
But didn't because?
I thought if I did chest compressions, that might set this round off.
Next, heart-stopping video, literally.
I knew that if we didn't just get this thing out, he was gonna die.
And maybe everyone else as well. When we come back.
Private Channing Moss is slipping away, his badly wounded body shutting down, the tail section of a rocket-propelled grenade sticking out of his side. What's been buried inside Moss is exposed in this X-ray. The doctors and Sergeant Brown are relieved by what they don't see. The deadliest part of the RPG, the main explosive charge, is not in Moss.
So I was like, okay, this is a good thing. I said, the warhead's not there. They're like, good. I said, well, not all the way.
What is in Moss is a smaller explosive, the primer used to detonate the grenade. And if it goes off, it will kill Moss and maim anyone nearby.
It means we won't die, we'll just lose our hands. And they kind of looked at me and said, you know we're surgeons, right? I was like, yeah.
Gingerly, they carry Moss from the triage area to the operating table.
I knew that if we didn't just get this thing out, he was gonna die. Whether it took fingers off or not, we had to get this thing out.
And here are the incredible images documenting the actual surgery. The doctors reach inside Moss, steadying the still lethal rocket inches from the soldier's beating heart. Using a hacksaw, Sergeant Brown gently saws off the fins and eases the rocket out.
You feed it, I'm holding on.
With the detonator aimed at his own body.
Almost there, about 3 more inches.
What his theory was that if it had detonated, then it would have detonated into his flak vest.
There we go, we're clear, we're clear. All right.
Sergeant Brown took it.
And carefully walked out?
He walked out at a smart pace.
Once outside, Brown takes the rocket to a bunker and detonates it.
I was the loudest sound in my whole life, and just relief. The whole post could hear it go off.
I sat on a couple pallets outside the aid station, took my vest off, then I started shaking. I just sat there. I knew I did everything I could to help him live. And that was just very, very intense for me after the fact.
In just a matter of days, Private Moss is rushed to Walter Reed Army Medical Center.
His pelvis was shattered, internal organs were severely damaged. He couldn't walk. For Moss, another challenge in a lifetime of obstacles. Raised by family friends after a tough childhood, he'd become a high school football standout, got into college, got married, and started a family. So as broken as Private Moss's body was, he focused from the very start on recovery.
What did they tell you at that point your prognosis was? Did they tell you that you would be able to walk again?
I told them. The doctor came into the room, and I was like, I can feel my feet. I'm gonna walk again. I told him just like that.
For his wounds in combat, Moss had a Purple Heart coming, but he wanted to wait. He underwent 4 major surgeries, followed by intense physical therapy. Finally, after 3 months of painful rehabilitation, Private Moss was ready for his Purple Heart.
You refused to get the medal, receive the medal, until you could stand.
Right.
Why was it so important to you to be able to stand to receive that medal?
I wanted to walk. They say Army strong. I wanted to be an example of that, and I was. So I stood up. I walked over there and got my medal.
A year later, Moss is home with the family and the newest baby daughter he thought he would never meet. We arranged for some of the men who helped save him to pay a visit.
I got a story to tell.
Story to tell the kids.
Story to everybody.
I didn't want him to feel like he owed me anything, but in this case, we all needed some kind of closure, just to say, Channing, are you doing okay? And he's doing great, so.
Another day, another visitor arrived at the front door, Doc Angel, the battlefield medic who was the first person to defy the danger in saving Private Moss.
What's up?
What's up, man?
What's going on, bro? How you doing?
I'm doing all right.
You're walking? Yeah, I can walk now.
This is the first time they've seen each other since the day Moss was wounded.
How are you? How are you?
You know what this is?
Yes.
This is Doc Angel.
For Private Moss's wife, Lorena, it is overwhelming.
You saved my husband. You saved their father. And thank you. Thank you.
You know, it's like everything else. If you don't take large risks, then you don't make great gains. And everybody took a risk that day, and Private Moss is alive because of that.
I was given a second chance, and to whom much is given, much is expected. So a lot is expected of me.
He was American, he was a soldier, he was a brother, and he was one of us. And there was nothing going to stop us from doing what we knew what we had to do. There's a sense of accomplishment between all of us. We knew we did it right. In that screwed up world, we did something right.
Next, the legendary boardwalks of the Jersey Shore. That was then. This is now.
I'll never be able to take my kids on that roller coaster.
What will it take to bring it back again?
Head down off the boardwalk. Let's go. Gotta leave.
For all of you who grew up loving the thrill of a roller coaster ride or maybe had your first kiss on a Ferris wheel, this one's for you. Amusement parks destroyed in some of the legendary towns along the Jersey Shore. Places with familiar names like Atlantic City, but also Asbury Park and Seaside Heights. Can the happiness on the boardwalk happen again? Here's Sharon Alfonsi.
Tonight I'm gonna take that ride.
For generations, it was the place where time stood still. The Jersey Boardwalk, immortalized by Bruce Springsteen, where summer nights were almost as sweet as the cotton candy. And seemed to last almost as long as memory itself. But this week, the iconic pier at Seaside Heights became iconic in a different way. Hero Police Chief Thomas Boyd helped save 36 people the night Sandy swept ashore. But even he was silenced by what the morning revealed.
This is like a mini Chernobyl, you know, where everything's stopped dead in its tracks.
He took 2020 on an exclusive tour, for the first time letting cameras onto the sagging pier itself. Boyd was born and raised here in Seaside Heights. His first job, putting umbrellas in the sand for visitors.
I heard you worked as an umbrella boy.
Yeah. I think the rental was $2 a day, and we lived off tips.
Later, he became a lifeguard, Seaside royalty. He is still protecting the beaches of his battered home today, now Seaside's police chief. And the amusement park that once lit up like a jewel on the Jersey Shore is now dark.
It's very quiet, very subdued.
All over America, people were feeling the loss, from New Jersey's maverick governor.
We flew to the Jersey Shore of my youth, to the boardwalk at Seaside Heights, and it is gone. The pier with the rides, where I took my kids this August, those rides are in the Atlantic Ocean.
To Kelly Ripa.
And he said, the Jersey Shore of my youth is forever changed. And I became so sad because it's the Jersey Shore of my youth.
On the coast of New Jersey are some
And the memories poured in. That Ferris wheel?
I had my first date and my first kiss under that Ferris wheel. I have a lot of great memories from being there.
And that roller coaster now parked on the ocean floor?
When I'm riding down, I screamed at the top of my lungs.
Did you ever throw up?
No.
No. Did you ever throw up?
Yeah, I did. After you get off, you feel like, I want to do that again.
Now it's Twisted Metal. The Penny Arcade.
I remember taking pennies and nickels from my father's dresser to come up here and put them in the machines.
The arcade, now crumpled like an accordion.
How far did these games go back?
From the 20s. Yeah, penny, nickel, dime. You don't see too many of those anymore. You never get them replaced because they don't make them. You know, it's part of our history.
But don't write it off just yet. Seaside Heights has been down before. In 1955, a fire almost destroyed the boardwalk, viewable here on a Seaside Historic website. They rebuilt. In 1965, again, fire decimated the boardwalk, and again, it rose from the ashes.
That's really what it is. It's a spirit. Until you're here, you just don't understand it. You don't know that how it grabs you.
Bill Akers is the mayor of Seaside Heights. His children were raised here.
One thing about it is long bloodlines. They've got generation after generation after generation have been here. It's in every fiber of their body. This is what we do. This isn't bigger than us. We're bigger than it.
We're from New Jersey. We never lose faith. They're going to rebuild it. My children are going to have many more memories to come.
But, you know, we're pretty resilient, and we're gonna come back.
And in the end, what will save the timeless Jersey Shore is time.
That's a look at the heroes among us, and sometimes you don't have to look any further than the person standing next to you or looking right back at you in the mirror. And this coming Monday, you will all have the chance to become heroes as ABC turns Monday into a day of giving. From Good Morning America to Jimmy Kimmel Live late that night. We'll all be banding together to raise money for Hurricane Sandy relief efforts. And of course, we'll have more on Nightline after your local news tonight. I'm Elizabeth Vargas. For all of us at 2020 and ABC News, good night and go out and be a hero.